Hey fam, so today we are going to be making this granny square is on the string. I'm going to be using my 4mm hook and a brown and white yarn. So I'm going to be taking two of each and combine the strands to have a thick strand. Since I don't have a thicker one, so I'm going to combine two thin ones. So first of all, I'm going to be making my chain. So first of all, I have to make my knot. I'm going to put my hook beneath the thread and then twist it. I'm going to try it again, so watch closely. The hook beneath the thread, then twist it over. Then I'm going to pick one strand and then slide it through the loop. Then I'll pull on the bottom strand there. Very good. Now make 4 chains. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now on my first chain, I'm going to slide my hook through it and take a strand from that first chain and slide it into the fourth one, making a slip stitch. Now I'm going to starting my actual project, so I'm going to make 3 chains initially. 1, 2, then 3. So now I'm going to make a cluster of double crochets. That's 3 double chains. 1, 2, and 3. So finally I'm going to make 1 chain, then another double stitch, double stitch. 1. So now that's like the end of the first row. So you see that I have 2 holes that are available for me in my next row. I'm going to make 3 chains once again and turn over my project. In the first hole, I'm going to make a cluster. That's 3 double chains. That's 3 double crochet stitches. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And now I'm going to make the same 3 clusters. That's already 1 cluster into the next one. After which I'm going to make 1 chain and then another double stitch in the same hole. So let's make the second cluster. Okay, now make 1 chain, then another double crochet stitch inside the same hole. So after this row, I'm supposed to have 3 holes for the next row. Very good. I'm going to make 3 chains, then I'll move on to the next row. So turn my projects. In the first row, make 1 cluster of double crochet. Okay, when you're done with this row, we are going to change yarn. So for that, I'm going to make my 1 chain and then make my double stitch. So before I end the double stitch, I'm going to stop midway. So when I slide 1 yarn in, I stop and then I start to change with my next yarn. So with my next yarn, that's the color white, I'm going to pick that yarn and slide it to the last 2 loops. There you go. Leaving and pull a little bit on the brown and leaving the brown yarn over there unattended to. Then I make my 3 chains to move on to my next row. This is how I hide my yarn, my strands. I don't want them being seen, so this is how I hide it. Very good. So after making my 3 chains, I'm going to continue with the same process in the first hole I'm going to make 3 clusters. Look at how I'm going to hide my brown yarn. So whilst putting my loop in there, I make sure that my brown yarn is on the loop, on the hook. That way I'm going to crochet the next cluster with the brown yarn underneath it. So I'm going to treat the brown yarn as part of the row. So you see it's hidden. Then I'm going to continue by hiding it till I get to the end of the row. So it's like a repetitive process. I'm going to repeat the same thing over and over and over again until the size, your required size. So I'm going to make 3 clusters in each hole, and on the last hole, after making my third cluster, I make a single chain stitch. Then I make a single double stitch before I make my 3 chains, then flip the project to make the next row. My single, then my one double stitch, after which I make 3 single chains. So you see my yarn, I'm going to leave it over there. I'm not going to continue with it. So I make my 3 chains, and I flip my project to go on with the second and then third row for the white. Okay, so now we are done with the third row for the white, and then we are going to change yarn. So I'm going to, just as I did for the other one, I'm not going to cut the brown one. I'm going to pick the brown one from where I left it, and then I'm going to slide it through the last 2 loops on the hook of the white, the last 2 loops of white on the hook. So just as you've seen in the video, yes, I'm going to do that. So you see the brown is just going to hang on the side. Yes, and I'm going to just continue my project from there. I'm going to make my 3 chains, then I flip my project. Remember, you're going to treat the white yarn as part of the previous row. So you're going to crochet the brown or the new row in a way to cover the strand, that's the white strand. So I'm going to attach the white to the other row and then crochet over it, just like this. So I'm going to make my first 3 double stitches, making a cluster. Then I would continue to the very end of the row, come back, and then go to the third row. Now we are done with the third row, and so we are going to switch to our white. Same process. Going to take the white strand from the end, then you slide it into the last 2 brown loops on the hook. Then you make your 3 chains, flip the project, and continue with the next row. But this time you have seen we have made the one side, we are going to make the other side. So this is how we are going to do that. After making your 3 chains, you're not going to make the first cluster in the first hole, but then you're going to go into the second hole. That's where you're going to make your first cluster. Then you continue the process to the end of the row, and just as you didn't make the first cluster in the first hole, you're also not going to make the last cluster in the last hole, but then the last cluster is going to be in the last but one hole. So I'm going to do that and then get back. So just as I said, I did my last cluster in the last but one hole, and for the last hole I'm going to make a single double stitch into the last hole, just like this, after which I'm going to make 3 chains, flip my project, and just as I made the first white row, I'm not going to make the first cluster in the first hole, but then in the second hole. All the way to the last but one hole. Exactly. Now I'm going to make a single double stitch in the last hole. Look at this. I'm not putting it directly in the hole, but then on the chain that is above the hole. After which I'm making my 3 chains, flip my project for the third row of white. Same process, move into the second hole for the first cluster, all the way to the last but one hole. Very good. Now to switch, you just go by the same process. You switch the yarns by picking the brown from the one hanging. So this is how we are seeing things. So now we are going to continue just like that until we get to the last one. So now on the last one, let me show you how you end the project. So when you're done through to the last, on the last we are going to make 2 chains, flip your project and make a single double crochet stitch, and that will be your end of the project. I hope you got it. I skipped a lot of processes in the video, but it's very simple. Just go by what I said and then you would get it. So this is what we are getting. We are going to now try and make stitches around the borders of the project. Now for the white, you're going to make half double stitches. Yes, the borders you're going to make half double stitches, starting with the white. So you pick a strand, then you take a loop out. Yeah, I believe you know how to make half double stitches, since this video is not for beginners. So you're going to continue till you get to the end of the white. Then once you get to the end of the white, you are going to swap your yarn for the brown one. So once I get to the end, I'm going to leave the white and go for the brown. So let's make our last half double stitch. So when I pick my loop, I take the brown and I slide it through them. That's how I do my switch of colors. So the next, I'm going to make the brown to the end, then the white to the end. Let's meet at the end of this side of the project. Now we are done with one side. So now when you get to the edge, let's change colors. Then when you get to the edge, you're going to first start by making a first half double stitch in there, followed by 2 half double stitches. Then on the next stitch, you are going to make another half double stitch. So it's like 4 half double stitches, but necessarily not directly in the hole, so 2 is really supposed to be in the hole, and then the other 2 on the sides, but actually should be in one of the stitches, should I say it like that? Yeah. So you're going to continue the process like this till you get to the other side or the end. Let's get to the end. Now when you get to the end of the project, all you need to do is use a slip stitch to close the row. So this is what you're going to have. Yes, straighten it up, and then you can use it in all your projects.